Meaningless. I want to talk about this with CNN's Josh Campbell, who was an FBI supervisory agent, and former House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers, who was also a special agent at the FBI. And Mr. Chairman, you still have your security clearance, Josh. You don't have your FBI clearance anymore because you left the agency. Chairman Rogers, let me just get your reaction. What do you think about the president threatening to revoke the security clearance of all these people for criticizing him?
Well, it's petty, and it's certainly below the stature of the office of the President of the United States. I mean, even to weigh into this. Now, it is with courtesy and custom that former directors keep their clearances, and they do that for the purpose of trying to gather up quarterly or even biannually to be able to express in an open way very classified information that may be perplexing the director of fill-in-the-blank agency. So that's why, by courtesy and custom, they do that. To me, that makes sense to continue to do that. That said, I will say one thing. It is also not customary for this former CIA director to be off the reservation where he is either.
He's been making very, very harsh, basically accusing President Trump of treason last week.
And I just wish that the president would be bigger than that. I don't think that John Brennan should do it. I didn't remember, if you recall, I was saying Comey shouldn't be tweeting right after he was dismissed either. I thought that was inappropriate. And I think this all feeds into that same kind of what in God's green earth is going on kind of a narrative that we're dealing with now.
Josh, let me ask you, you worked for James Comey to a degree. Has the fact that it's true that we've never had a president threaten this type of thing before. We've also never before had a former FBI director saying the things that Director Comey has said about President Trump, a former CIA director saying the kinds of things that John Brennan has said about President Trump.
No, that's right. And I think I would agree with Chairman Rogers that, I mean, this is pettiness, on full display here. But I think it's blowing up in their face because they didn't do their homework to actually understand what the clearance process is like and what goes into actually, providing clearances and revoking clearances. As we mentioned, both Comey and McCabe no longer have them. I think what I try to do is separate between two separate issues. There's one, access to classified information and knowledge that you take with you whenever you leave government. As I sit with you right now, I have information in my mind that I know, secrets based on my work in government, but I also know that it's my solemn obligation to this country to protect those secrets. And every one of these officials knows the same thing. So there is a difference between the knowledge that you have on the basis of doing your work and your ability to speak out, in a First Amendment capacity and be able to criticize some of the actions that you're seeing in government. It's not as though these officials that you just listed there are actually out there now divulging classified information and secrets in order to criticize. They're seeing the actions that take place before them, and they're actually responding to them. I think that, it's pettiness, and I'll just say that, it is interesting that the irony being you have people here that are now at the White House who, spent a career, no doubt, leveraging every relationship and monetizing every experience in order to be swept into office. And they're now criticizing those who spent decades and decades in the service of the public and who are now out speaking their mind and, writing books and moving into the next chapter of their life. It's pretty stunning.
And Chairman, to play devil's advocate here for a second, I think what you would hear were Clapper or Hayden or any of the others here, they might say, yes, this is unprecedented, but it's also unprecedented to have a president of the United States who refuses to accept the intelligence conclusion about an attack on the United States, such as what happened with the cyber attack by the Russians. It's also unprecedented for there to be a national security investigation into whether or not that president's campaign in any way, shape, or form conspired with a foreign country in that cyber attack. So we are in uncharted territory in many ways.
So completely. And by the way, they have the right to speak their mind publicly. They have that right. What they can't do is disclose classified information. So for the president and his team to go back, they would have to at least clearly demonstrate where they disclose classified information. Having an opinion doesn't mean you've exposed classified information. It just, the whole process of this seems unseemly. And what I don't like about it is it's now pitting Republicans and Democrats and conservatives and liberals and every spectrum on the political scale against each other on, I'm for the FBI now where I used to be not for it, and I wasn't for it before, but now I am. That is really dangerous, and that's what I worry about. And that's why I think by past and custom, most of these directors didn't come out in the way. They certainly had opinions, they expressed those opinions, they talked about national security, but they didn't have that really acerbic tone that you have seen in the last few weeks. That's the part I worry about, because I think it's starting to divide Americans in a way that will harm the ability for these intelligence services to do the work that they have to do.
And also, Josh, we should point out, as we said in the first part of the show, Michael Flynn, former director of the intelligence agency, Defense Intelligence Agency, led a chant of "lock her up" at the Republican convention in 2016 and kept his security clearance. Even though obviously that was an incredibly tough thing to say about a former Secretary of State.
That's right. And that, I think, shows that this is pure politics, what we see on display. There's a distinction between someone losing their security clearance because they've done something wrong or there's some type of malfeasance. So, with the case of, Andy McCabe at the FBI, who obviously was fired and now is, going through legal issues himself, there's no question there that, okay, we can understand someone losing their clearance. The same with Michael Flynn. There's this double standard where he got to keep his while actually acting unbecoming someone who was in that position. I will say this, to echo what Barbara Starr was saying earlier, this is a disservice to our country, because if you're an analyst right now at CIA or NSA and you're working on a project and you think the person who may have knowledge is someone like one of the former CIA directors or the FBI director, I can no longer tap into those people because they no longer have a clearance.
All right, Josh Campbell, former chairman.